Hey there, everyone. My name is Ryan Schul. Welcome to my data science and predictive analytics channel. In the project today, I want to discuss energy demand prediction and energy supply prediction. Okay, so on the supply side, we can say supply is influenced by a few different types of assets. Asset type could be solar, wind, hydro, gas, nuclear, maybe coal, things like this, right? An asset is basically a tangible property that is worth some type of capital amount, whether it be uh, lower millions, tens of millions, maybe $100 million. It's worth something, right? And it's a physical, tangible piece of property. Influencing factors that drive supply is sunlight, cloud cover, seasons. For solar, wind speed, high pressure systems or low pressure systems. For wind, for hydro, it's rainfall, reservoir levels. And for gas or nuclear or even coal, it's scheduled output and maintenance cycles. On the demand side, there's different influences and different type of stimuli that drive demand. Let me clean this up. I'm not having there. It just kind of jumped over me unexpectedly. Okay, so based on the time of the day, the demand can increase or decrease. Peaks during the morning hours when people are starting to get up and getting ready to go to work. You'll have breakfast, cook your breakfast in a microwave or stove or something. Dies down a little bit during the day, except in a corporate environment setting where it's pretty consistent. At evening, especially in residential areas, it spikes again. Spikes again between 5 and 9 p.m. People come home, they're preparing dinner, watching some TV, maybe a movie, maybe half a movie, whatever. Get ready to go to bed, and then start the pattern the next day. Day of the week. So lower demand on the weekends when people are out of the house, they're out and about, they go to church on Sunday. Saturday, go outside and do some biking, hiking, recreational activities outside, right? Seasonal and temperatures changes can drive demand. High demand in summer for AC and winter for heating. That's pretty common sense, right? Weather conditions can drive demand. Extreme heat or cold. Holidays can affect demand. Lower industrial demand or residential activities may vary. And based on economic activity, demand can fluctuate too, right? So based on higher GDP, if you have more disposable income, you're going to spend more on energy. If you don't have 2 pennies in your pocket, you're not going to blast the AC or turn up the heat, right? Because you can't afford to do that. Manufacturing output or popular growth or higher baseline demand can all be driven by these factors, right? So let me go ahead and import some data. I found this on Kaggle. I'll show you where at the bottom of the Jupyter Notebook, I have a link to this. It's called Energy Consumption, Generation Prices, and Weather. So aptly named, I would say. You can download it on this little black button over here. And again, I have a link at the bottom of the Jupyter Notebook. So I went ahead and just imported the data. So we have this in the data frame right here. And I'm going to go ahead and display what is in the data frame here, okay? So this is, we'll start with the supply side analysis. I put demand first. Let me change this around. Energy supply side. Okay, energy supply side versus, just to keep things tight over here. And this is Iron Python notebook. Okay, good. Okay, so waiting for the view to come up. So basically, we're looking at megawatt hours. Everything is pretty much standardized in terms of megawatt hours. Whenever you see a number of power production coming from any type of asset, the standard is in megawatt hours, unless it says otherwise. I haven't seen too many exceptions to that rule or too many deviations, but I suppose there could be some. And okay, so the data's loaded, and we can see what it looks like. So this is it, basic biomass, brown coal ignite, fossil fuel generation, fossil gas, coal, fossil geothermal. Okay, we don't have too much in this country, but in Iceland, it's huge. I think it's like 85, 90%. What else? Hydro, maritime, marine. Okay, a nuclear, other. Okay, we have renewables over here. Solar, waste, wind offshore, wind, solar, day ahead, and what else? Total load and total load actual and price actual. Okay, so we have some pretty interesting data that we can dig into and play around with. So let's do a breakdown by source based on renewables versus fossil fuels, right? Two totally different types of energy. Renewable is hydro, solar, and wind. Typically geothermal, I think, could be considered in that same category. And any kind of fossil fuel is coal, gas. Actually, nuclear, I believe, is clean, even though it doesn't really sound like it's clean. I think that is a clean Type of energy, is that renewable? I'm not sure if that's defined as renewable, but I think it's actually considered clean. So I guess it depends on your definition, but I've heard that that's clean energy before. So we take all these renewables, we'll have renewable access, and we're going to look at fossil generation, which is total generation minus renewable. So if we go over here, we create a couple new columns and append that onto the data frame. So total generation, I think we had that. We have renewable generation. Okay, that's a new column that we just appended on, and fossil generation. So these are renewables. We have the data frame named the DF. When you take renewable and assign that to some axis 1, we have renewable generation. That is the new column we just created. And then fossil fuel is total generation, right, minus renewable. Everything between that is a fossil. Okay, so let's look at a generation by energy source over time. So the x-axis is going to be horizontal. The y is going to be the total megawatts of energy produced on the vertical axis. And let's take a look and see what that looks like. I'm going to save the notebook here because I feel like we could have a crash coming up soon. My computer's getting a little bit old here and it's getting very erratic in its behavior. Okay, so let's just look at a quick visual here, and then we'll move on to the demand side of the equation. And if you stick with me to the end, then I'm going to show you some really cool forecasting techniques so we can see all the historical stuff that happened in the past, and we'll take all of this data and make projections and forecasts into the future. I think it goes like, I forgot what it was, 6 months into the future. I think something like that. I think that's what I decided. But with these tools that you implement, you can choose how far into the future you want to look. So the further you go out, the foggier it gets. If you want to look 2 or 3 months into the future, it should be pretty crystal clear. If you want to look a year into the future, it should be pretty accurate. If you want to look, let's say 3, 4, or 5 years into the future, that is going to get a little bit fuzzy, and there's all kinds of things that could take your analysis offline, or help you to drive into a ditch unintentionally, of course. But the basic, the idea is, the premise is, the further you go out, the fuzzier things get, right? To determine what the weather is going to look like tomorrow or the day after or the day after that, it's pretty easy to do that, right? Just look on weather.com and you can see those forecasts. If you want to try to predict the weather 1 year from now or 2 years or 3 years from now, that is going to be like a completely different ballgame, right? It's very hard to predict more accurately as you go out further and further on the time continuum. Okay, so I can see this is working. I know the notebook is struggling. I know it's old. Put this thing out to pasture pretty soon, probably. But in the meantime, I need it for just a little bit longer. But hopefully it's going to produce a nice chart for us, showing us the time on the x-axis and the supply columns on the y, and then break down the energy types into different colors or different buckets, and show you what the value or the production capacity of each energy supply is. If we go back to this chart, while this thing is running, I don't know why it's taking so long, but that's just the way it is. You can see like some of these, coal produces 42, 48, 21 megawatt hours, right? And if you go over here, 4281, if you go over to like solar or wind, where is it? Over here. 4200, wind is actually 0. That's okay. And we have solar over here. Solar 49. Okay, so 49 megawatt hours, right? So pretty tiny compared to this 4800 from gas. So you can see that. So the fossil fuels are really like on the basis of 100 times more powerful. So these are called base energies, more consistent, more predictable, more persistent in terms of energy production and total megawatt capacity, right? Wherever you look, there's 4130. This is in 2015, January, at what time? 4 o'clock in the morning. So this is midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And this is pretty consistent, right? So coal generation, 4200, 47, 45, 41, 38. And over here for solar, we're looking at 49, 50, 50, 50, 42. Now you could say maybe this is overnight, this is midnight. So is this area exposed to sun? Like if this was in the Middle East, in the United States, it could be dark, it could be midnight. But if this data was being collected in the Middle East, then this is the middle of the day. Now I presume overnight, This is probably all United States data. I don't know if it says where the data is actually coming from over here in this download. Prices based in Spain. Oh, weather in Spain. Okay, so there you go. So if it's midnight for us, they're like 6 hours ahead. So it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun is probably coming up around 5 or so. And they're already starting to get sunlight, right? So if it's based on our local time, that would make sense. If it's midnight to 1 o'clock Spain time, presumably 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 o'clock in the morning, presumably these solar assets over here are generating bare minimal amount of megawatts, maybe from some ambient light, maybe even from some moonlight or starlight or something like that. I suppose that could be happening. I don't know if the data really describes that or not. This thing is really slow, guys, and I'll tell you, like, it's frustrating to deal with this. But I don't know what to do. Like, it's been 11 minutes and we haven't even really done anything. But you know what? I'm tenacious and I'm persistent, if nothing else. So I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait for this thing to go. And that's that. But we can jump ahead a little bit. I mean, honestly, like, I don't know what makes this thing so slow. It's a solid state drive. A couple years old. It's not that old. Like, there's really no excuse for this thing. I don't know why it's a ThinkPad too. So I don't know. Things should work. They don't work. There's no reason for it. But I'll jump ahead to this next thing. This graph is kind of stupid, to tell you the truth. Anyways, probably just delete the thing. It's kind of dumb. So we have forecast error minus is a load error minus the total actual error. So we're looking at any kind of forecast error based on the total actual and the total load that's being forecasted to try to anticipate how accurate is the forecast relative to the actual load bearing megawatts on the system, right? So we can get the forecast error. We just derive the forecast error, right? So that's the difference between the load forecast and the load actual. So you have the forecast error. We're going to take the absolute. So if it's a load positive, a load negative, doesn't matter. We're taking the absolute value of that, dot ABS. So we get that property. Then we have the forecast error. Then we can look at the mean load actual, the mean load forecast, and the mean absolute forecast error to try to determine how accurate are the forecasts compared to like what we're projecting into the future and what we are actually getting. Okay, so we get a mean. You know what? I am just going to give in. Normally, I would just deal with it and say, wait it out. But in this case, computer wins. Okay, I will bow down to that power and I will just say, I want that up. Boom. Okay, so I won in the end anyway. You think you're going to win, but you really can't. So 318 over 2877, because I get that when I run this. And see, there's no reason that should run in 1 second. Why does it take 10 minutes? There's literally no reason. You can run that chart if you want. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of dumb. I mean, it just compounds everything and all the interest, all the energy supplies over time. So really, I'm sorry, the chart is dumb. Just because I have the sour grapes attitude now, right? Remember the fox and sour grapes. So it could be nice if it behaved, but if it doesn't, then I'm just going to delete it. So we have 318 over 2877. So 316 over 2877, almost the same thing. And the actual error is about 1.1%. So it's pretty low. And basically the forecast is very accurate. So we have the actual load forecast that is being calculated, and we have the predicted forecast. So I'm matching those two up to see what the difference is, 1.1%. It's trivial, it's de minimis, it really doesn't matter. So we can pretty much be confident with our forecasts into the future. We're going to make some forecasts here in just a minute. It's going to be really cool. So this is one of the charts I was going to show you. That last dumb thing wasn't even working. I don't even care about that. Let me control enter this. Hopefully this one is going to behave. So now we have the data frame that we looked at before. The X is going to be on the time axis, right? So this is very common. You see X on the time axis, Y is going to be the total actual load and the total actual forecast. And again, we're going to see how close these are. We know for a fact, we just did the calculation. This is about 1.1% off, give or take, right? So it's not a big deviation. It's not a big deal. The forecasting is pretty accurate. We are going to do some forecasting in just a couple of minutes here. I just wanted to show you the actual load and the actual forecast, or I'm sorry, the load actual and the load forecast, and then just compare apples to apples here and then just see what we get. But I'm hoping like these charts aren't like just wigging out here, because this is working totally fine yesterday. Now we turn on the video recorder and now it decides like the chart gets camera shy or something. I don't know what's going on here, because it worked totally fine yesterday. So yesterday and today, if it worked then, it should work now, but who knows? Okay, and we have demand, actual versus load. Okay, so it decided to work. That's nice. And I put most of my charts 1100 width and height 600, just to get enough exposure on the screen. It takes up most of the width of the screen, and the ratio of the width to the height, I think, is pretty decent. And you can zoom in. I'm not going to do it because I can tell already that these charts are being kind of like a little bit stubborn today, I guess. They're just not compliant. Compared to yesterday, everything was fine. I don't know what changed in the last 24 hours. But you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can put the mouse over here, and you'll see the bubbles pop up, and it shows you all the details of the graph. So again, time on the horizontal and vertical shows you the load on the system in terms of megawatt hours, and it pretty much goes between 20,000, what is this, kilowatt, and 40K, right? So forecast error over time, again, pretty low. It's pretty consistent. It's in the same band. We do have a couple deviations over here. So there was a big error between the predicted and the actual, or the forecast and the actual. Not sure why. We can look into it, but that's not really the point of this video. For the most part, everything, the actual matches the expected, and we're in good shape here. So we can do peak demand detection just to see what this thing looks like. Peak demand occurred on 1/18/2017, so that's January 18th. Maybe very cold season. Maybe it was an extremely cold night, and people were turning on their heaters in their houses and whatnot, and thermostats spiked up in corporate office spaces because of the extreme cold. That would be my guess. But anyways, just to find the peak demand is 41,000 megawatts, or 41 kilowatts. And you can see that probably right around here. That was 13, 12, 9, maybe here, 12, 7 now. Oh, that was the error. So that's going to be a little bit different. Okay. Anyways, I think that would be coming back over here, 4139 on May. That was May 2, Jan 18, 4101. I think that was it. 2017, 118, right? Yeah, that was it. So that was a peak load right there. Okay. So anyways, that's just some fun little exercises. We don't have to do that, but it's good to see how it works. Now, let me take you through this chart that shows you the average weekday utilization of energy and the average weekend utilization of energy. So with these dates, it starts with 0 through 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 6 and 7, 5 and 6. So it's a little bit not totally intuitive. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is Monday through Friday. 5 and 6 is Saturday, Sunday. Then they start again at Monday. Okay, so the first time I saw that, I was confused too. I'm like, well, I don't know how they get that, but that's the convention in the Python world. So the day of the week, if it's less than 5, so 0 through 4, that's Monday through Friday, that's a weekday. Weekend is greater than or equal to 5, so 5 and 6. We're taking everything, grouping by the hour, and the total actual energy utilization, and we're taking the average. So this is a mean. So this is going to give us average weekday, BD date time. 2090. 2090. That sounds weird. Let me see. Let me see what's going on here. I would like to not have to reproduce the whole thing here. So let me see if I can come up with some kind of answer to this thing. This sounds like a misaligned date almost, but I don't know what that 2090 means. So let me look into this. And honestly, like, I don't know why some of these things are behaving like this. So computers are supposed to be deterministic, which means you know what is going to happen. If you test it and it works, then it should work subsequent times. But today, there's some gremlins running around in my system. I guess they know I'm going on vacation tomorrow, and they just want to plot against me and make me work extra hard before I take a break, right, for a couple of days. That's probably what it is. Otherwise, like this thing was totally working fine 24 hours ago, and nothing has changed since then. So let me see if I can just get to the bottom of this, because I do want to show you that graph. It is pretty cool. You can see the peaks and the troughs over time based on the day of the week, Monday through Friday, and the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And again, the time and the time of the day and the day of the week have a huge impact on how energy is consumed and utilized. Okay, so if you ever worked in the energy business, that would be very apparent. If you didn't, you probably wouldn't even know about this kind of pattern. And I was surprised the first time I worked at an energy company. I was kind of surprised. I thought when I saw it, but like when you see these graphs, it's pretty intuitive and it's pretty obvious what's going on here. People just use energy differently, weekdays and weekends, and different times of the day for weekdays and for weekends. And we'll see why in just a minute. So if you're working with UTC, just update your line like this: DF hour, day of week. Okay, let me try this. Oh, so let's see, fingers crossed. Yay, okay, it worked. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So overnight, you can see the dip down. So this is midnight, right? Zero, we're looking at military time, essentially 24K megawatts, so 24,000 watts of power. And midnight, it's kind of trickling down a little bit. People are still up, kind of like watching TV late night with Stephen Colbert or whatever, right? Dips down by 1, 2 o'clock, people are going to bed. 5, 6 o'clock, people are waking up, getting ready to go into the office, right? So this is breakfast time. People are getting ready to leave the house, probably put on a TV, watching more news, cooking something in the oven or microwave. Then you leave the house, you're on your way to work. Now, most of the energy, and there's always exceptions, right? Like if you work in a factory, it's going to be different. If you work in an office building, it's going to be different. But normally, the first shift, people are at work, whether you're in an office or a factory, and the utilization of energy dips down a little bit, right? And kind of like trickles down until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 p.m. is 1,500 hours. Then it kind of jumps up a little bit as people are getting ready to leave the office, the factory, wherever they work. And it kind of spikes up around here when you're coming home for dinner. Now people turn on the evening news, or you're watching a movie or something, watching Netflix, and then it kind of trickles down pretty consistently down into back to 24 kilowatts. And again, weekday is in blue and the weekend is in red. So overall, historically and almost predictably, it's going to be less utilization of energy in the weekend compared to the weekday. Probably in the weekend, people are out and about, hiking, biking, mountain climbing, boating, fishing, doing outdoors activities, right? Playing soccer, playing basketball. On the weekends and the weekdays, it's more the routine, going to the office, going into the factory, or going to your job, whatever you do for work, right? So that's fine. Let's look at an example of utilization of energy loads by month. Okay, so we saw a big difference by the time of the day. This is 24 hours in an average day, pretty consistent and persistent. But let's look at the patterns over months, and it's doing this again. So date month, average date month. Which one is it? Date month, DT month, DT hour, DT month. Oh, I see. So definitely a gremlin in the system. I mean, I swear this thing worked yesterday and nothing changed. So it works before, it should work now, but it just doesn't. So you can see a dramatic shift in the terms of the energy used over the course of the day in the 24-hour period. And you can see a distinct and different pattern between weekdays and weekends. But over the course of the months, if you just look at this by month, there's not really any discernible pattern. Kind of trickles down a little bit. I think at least in the Northern Hemisphere, I live in New York City, so in the northern part of the United States, as the temperature increases, as the days get longer, I think people use less energy. It stays lighter longer. You turn the lights on later at night. You don't have to put the lights on at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. in the afternoon in April because the sun is so out. So like now I think it trickles up a little bit when we get into the hotter months. We're using more AC, using more energy, more resources, right? Now it's starting to cool off a little bit in August, definitely September, October, it's cooling off. November, December, it spikes up a little bit, but it's not a vast difference, right? It's pretty consistent and very persistent over time, but you do see a small, um, barely noticeable pattern as we go from the winter into the spring. Temperatures increase and energy use decreases, spikes up a little bit as we get into the hotter months, probably because of AC. More people are turning on the AC unit. Drops off a little bit as it cools off into the fall, and then spikes up a little bit more into the winter. I suppose for heat, people are turning on the heat in the winter time, right? So pretty much common sense, guys. This is pretty much common sense. So we're going to use a tool called Profit. This is great for univariate time series forecasting, and it gives us a clear and distinct understanding of seasonality, trends, even holidays, different patterns that you would encounter during the normal typical year, right? It automatically detects daily, weekday, seasonal patterns, any kind of like demand forecasting, some weird outliers, it accounts for that, or it picks these up and it notifies you about that. And it works best with continuous, regularly spaced time data. Now, if you have all kinds of weird, crazy data in your time series, I don't know if Profit is going to be the best tool for that, but most time series, if you think about it, are pretty standard, pretty consistent, and pretty persistent. So I think overall, Profit is a very good tool. I've used it and had great success for it. Is it going to perform well in every single instance? Probably not. But these days, this is my first go-to thing. I usually look at Profit and then XGBoost, random forest regressor, or XGBoost regressor, one of those. So those are my top three. In this case, I tested Profit and it performed pretty well. So let's look at our first forecast for solar and the demand for solar energy, right? So the title of this is Energy Supply Prediction versus Energy Demand Prediction. So we're going to do a forecast or a prediction into the future. Okay, so we saw historically what energy patterns have been in the past. Let's take a peek into the future and see what that's going to look like. And then we have another error. So okay. So I honestly don't know why this is doing this, but that's fine. That's fine. Let me look at something over here. I swear the computer knows I'm going on vacation tomorrow, and it's just trying to drag me down into an abyss. So I can't even leave. Get stuck here. But I will prevail. I will prevail. I'm not going to let a computer control me. So let's see. It looks like you're building energy. Space. Unique name. So that one is different from before. Solar model fit. We did that. So I'm not sure what the problem is. Let me see. Okay, so anyways, maybe the time thing. I don't know. Let's see. Let's get to the bottom of it. That's fine. You learned something new today. Um, so I think something with the time, but honestly, this worked totally fine yesterday and nothing changed. So I don't know what the issue is here. Something changed with the library, but I didn't do any changes there either. We'll figure it out. Anyway, so the period ahead that we're forecasting is 30 periods ahead, like I mentioned before. The further out you go, the fuzzier it gets and the foggier things become, right? If you look 90 days into the future, you can still make the forecast, but it's probably going to be more uncertainty. There's going to be more like just fuzziness, less confidence, less like predictability around this period of time, right? If you go 90 days or 180 days, but 30 days is very reasonable. We have, what was it, several years of time series historical data over here, right? If we go back here, we're going back to 2015, so 2025, that's 10 years of data. If we take 10 years of data and try to make a forecast 30 days into the future, this is all daily, then that should be totally legit and it should not be a big ask. So let me figure out this date thing over here, get past this thing, and then we can move on. Okay, and some solar file is not even open, right? Let me shut down every single thing on this computer because I mean, I think this thing used to be a powerhouse, but now, I mean, if the wind blows the wrong way, it can't perform simplest request. So let me shut down every single thing that I can and try to move this along ASAP. And if it can't, that is fine too. I'm at the mercy of the computer here, right? I can't do a forecast profit time series analysis myself. I need the assistance of the computer. We have to collaborate together. So I'm willing to do the work. I don't know if the machine is ready, willing, and able, but let's see. Okay. Okay. All right, let's just start all over from the beginning because I literally don't know what is going on now. What is going on is not what I anticipated. Highly confident about that. Oh, okay, so something with UTC, that is like the Universal Time Convention of time standards or something. Okay, so it's chugging along here. I think we'll have some results pretty soon. We'll have some kind of output. Give it a second. So at this point, again, we're forecasting solar in demand. That's the intention anyways. And we're looking 30 days ahead. That's a look ahead period, 30 days. And you can make this whatever you want. And the further out you go, the fuzzier it gets, and the more uncertainty that accumulates. But 30 days should be very reasonable and very accurate. And I think it's totally fine too, right? If we're trying to predict demand during the next 30 days, and we can get fairly close, it's great, because without a tool like this, without profit or some kind of time forecasting tool, you're just making best guess, and that's really like going to be subpar. Okay, so we have something here. So something's working. That's good. So we have the date. We have the overall trend, y hat lower, y hat upper. So the y hat is what we're trying to predict, right? We have a lower confidence interval and an upper confidence interval, lower trend, upper trend. And these are always probabilities, right? They're always, there's always some uncertainty. There's always some like probability baked into the analysis, right? Because you don't know exactly what's going to happen, but you can say with a certain degree of confidence, essentially what is going to happen, right? So we have all these new columns, these fancy new columns that Profit created for us. All we really need in this case, like this is nice to have the trend, the lower, upper, so on, so forth. What we need is DS, that's the date, and we need the y hat. That's what we're trying to predict. And if you look over here, so 2014, that is at the beginning of the analysis, and we go up to 2015, 01. But let me see something here on the actual data. Let me see where this actually ends, because this is not like we're getting real-time data. This is historical data from the past, right? And I just want to see where they actually stop this. So if we go here, 2015, right, and it goes to 2018. Okay, so that's kind of my thought. So we ended 2018, 12/31, and the forecast is going into 2018. We have the, oh, I see, because it didn't get the tail. Okay, let me just do this. I'm going to cheat a little bit over here. Yeah, okay, this was wrong. So you can see here, this is exactly what I told you it was going to do. So it ends in 12/31, that's the date. So this is 1600, 1920. This is 8 p.m., 12/31, 9, 10, 11 p.m. It ends at 11 p.m., right at the end of 2018. The forecast, if you recall, the forecast goes for the next 30 days. Okay, so periods into the future is 30 days. And if we look at the tail, because this is inverted, it's sorted. It's not even sorted. We could sort it the other way. It's not even sorted. It's just coming to us with the most recent at the bottom and the most distant at the top, and that's fine. We just didn't sort it, so it just came to us randomly. So 2019, 126, 2019, 127, 2018, 128, sorry, 126, 27, 28, 129, 130. So it goes 30 days into the future, into 2019. Now that is in the past, because now is 6/26, 2025. But remember, the data time series ended at 12/31, 2018. So the forecast is 30 days into the future. So that's why we have the end of January 2019. Okay, so it did exactly what it was supposed to do. So we're fine there. So let's look at solar demand, and we're going to go ahead and copy the original data frame. Again, we want the time and the generation solar. This came from the original data frame. Control Enter. And let's see what this looks like. We have a rolling window of 3 days, and we're trying to predict the Y value, right? That is the demand for solar energy going into the future based on the time series, a historical pattern of demand in the past, right? So we're taking what happened in the past and forecasting into the future, 30 days into the future, and it gives us this very nice graph. So this is fantastic. And this is the 30-day period, right? So if we look here, the blue line is the forecast supply. This is the actual forecast into the future, right? So you can see energy forecast demand is going to go up a little bit as the cold weather kind of climbs up into May. Now it's probably a little bit warmer out, right? Or in May. I'm sorry, okay. This is all like in the past, right? Because this is the past year. We're going back in time. We're looking back 1 year. So it ends in it ends in December 31, 2018. So we go back 1 year, January 2018, right? We go forward 1 year into January, December 29, 2018. That's the cutoff. So this is a historical supply, is the dotted line. The forecast supply for solar energy is the blue line, and the uncertainty is the upper and lower threshold, right? The upper bounds and the lower bound right here in green. Okay, so that is how you interpret the graph. So we have 1 year back, the past 2018, from January 2018 until the end of December 2018. That is the dotted line right here. The uncertainty, the upper and lower bounds is the green, and the forecast supply for solar is the blue. And you can see we're forecasting from the end of December into January 30th or 31st. I forgot where it ended. I deleted that thing. That's fine. Until the end of January, 30 days into the future. Okay, so that is the solar demand, and we can take everything and just replot the chart just slightly differently, and we can get the whole history of everything, and then show that relative to the projection into the future. Okay, so again, what we did before, we're going to replicate that again. We have the dates, the upper hat, the y hat upper. We saw that before. and the dates, and what else? The solar demand, right? So everything is being put into these plotly scatter plots. Okay, but a lot of this is just copy and paste. So we have the solar demand daily, the history. This is the date, this is the date, and then the Y is the forecasted value, and the solar demand is forecasted into the future. So everything that is orange is forecasted demand for solar, and the forecasted supply is in the blue line like we saw before. So this is kind of like a zoomed out view going back 10 years. And time, right now it's 2025. This is going back to January 2015, okay? And it goes forward for 3 years from the beginning of January 15 until the end of 2018, so 3 years of data. Then we can look at just the 1 year of data, look back right here. That's what we saw before in this previous chart over here. So this is just 1 year look back. This is 3 years look back. And the smaller chart here is actually the solar contribution to the overall demand for energy, or the overall supply of energy, or the overall, what is it? Overall demand. That's what we're looking at now. So you have the forecasted supply for solar, that's the blue. The uncertainty, the upper and lower bounds is in green. The actual historical supply is the dotted line, and the forecast for the whole time series, the whole 3 years, is in orange. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now let's look at wind and demand. That was solar. Now let's take a look at wind and see how that's different. So we have the same data frame, right? That comes from the beginning. We're feeding that into the profit time series model. Okay, and we're looking at time. That is the S. These two are coupled together, and generation, wind onshore, and Y. So this is power generation. Okay, so let me see what I called this before. Should be basically essentially the same. Yeah, generation solar, that's the Y, that's what we're trying to predict. And this is the time, okay? So exactly the same. We're looking at solar, we're looking at wind. That's these two charts right here. So, okay, so we're working on this. So the solar's all done. We're moving on to wind at this point. And again, taking at 3 years of historical data and forecasting into the next 30 days so we can understand what the demand will be for the next 30 days from our customer base, right? What do these households need in the city, in this city over here, in this city over here, and this other city over here? What is the expected demand? So we can crank up the power source, right, and deliver to meet the expectations of our customers, right? We don't want brownouts. We don't want blackouts. That's going to put your business in the front page of the local newspaper and maybe even spotlight in the national news if that happens, right? You want good publicity, not bad publicity. So we want to make sure that we have enough supply, we're generating enough supply to meet the demand, right? So we're forecasting the demand and make sure, we have the solar to deliver, we have the wind to deliver, and we have the hydro. And if not, then we're going to have to go to our competitors, right? For clean renewable energy company, we're going to have to go outside the business to our competitors, buy energy from them, and then deliver that to the customer. You don't want to be buying energy from your customer. You want to be delivering your own energy, right? That is going to help your bottom line. If you're buying energy, they'll gladly sell it to you, right? But the competition is going to charge you a premium. It's going to eat into your profits. You don't want that, right? So let's understand the demand for the energy within a certain confidence interval, right? That's what these green lines are for, because we don't know exactly what the demand is going to be, but we know within a certain probability, a certain percentage of deviation, we know what it's going to be. So here's the output. So again, here's the time, here's the trend, Y lower, Y upper, trend lower, trend upper. So thank you, Profit, for doing the lift. It's actually doing a lot of work behind the scenes. We have the daily lower, daily upper, weekly lower, upper, yearly lower, upper, and we get the Y hat. What's up? Yeah, I'm in the middle of something. Okay. I'll be done in 5 minutes. I'll be done in 5. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Goodbye. Okay. That's my son. Super cute. So here we go. So we have the dates, right? We have the dates, and we're forecasting the Y hat. So we're in good shape. We did the solar. This is the wind now. So we're moving on to wind. And I don't even think I did the hydro. We're just doing the two solar wind. You can do hydro by yourself. It's the same repetitive task over and over. So now we want to resample and get the daily mean and get to the wind daily average. Okay. So we're going to copy everything over from the data frame. I'm a big fan of using this. If you copy from the original source and use that, you have a clean source to begin with. If you make a change to this data frame accidentally and something gets changed, like you saw like a few minutes ago, somehow the time got changed. I don't know what happened. Maybe a gremlin got into my computer and messed around a little bit. I don't know. I don't think so though. Maybe I made a mistake, right? If I don't copy over the original data frame and I taint it or I change it somehow, even like the slightest, almost imperceptible change can have an impact, like we saw. And the penalty is, there's some downtime, 5 minutes to figure out what the issue was. If you copy from the source, I try to do this as often as I can. It's clean, it's untainted, it's pure, it's exactly what you started with. Nothing has messed around with this, right? So that's really the best practice. So anyways, let me hit Control Enter to refresh this. So we have the time and we have the Y hat. That's what we're trying to predict. If you look close, like we're copying over the source, making sure everything is converted to date time. The time should always be date time. I've been on Wall Street for 22 years. I've seen time come in as a string, as numeric, as sometimes it's an object, which could be considered a string, right? But it's not necessarily time. Time should be time. A date should be a date. Float should be a float, and a string should be a string. Okay, it's not that hard to get these things right. I don't know why they get all scrambled up all the time, but you see it all the time, right? So we got the time. We're going to reset that to DS. So when you feed this into Profit, it has to have a title called DS. It has to have a title called Y. You can't feed in generation wind onshore. It has no idea what that is, right? And it doesn't know what time it is. It knows DS is equivalent to time and Y is equivalent to whatever you set this to be. So wind onshore, that's what we're calling it. But in Profit world, it has to be with that Y, okay? So once you get the DS and the Y, you can move forecast into the future. And we can go ahead and fit the model. So we did the solar, now we're doing the wind. Okay, start processing. So we have the DS and now we have the tail. So that was good. First, I just got the head. Now we have the tail. So it's making the forecast into the future. Remember, this started in January 1st, 2015. We went to the end of December 2018, and we're making forecasts into the future for the next 30 days. That's the whole point here. So 30 days into the future. So pretty reasonable forecast. Nothing huge. We're not going like 3 months, 6 months, 1 year into the future. 30 days should be pretty focused. It should be pretty tight. And Profit is going to help us do a very accurate type of forecast, right? Again, the further you go out, the fuzzier it gets. So we go out 30 days. This is 126, 27, 28 to 29, 30. That's 30 days after the time period ended, which is December 31st, 2018. So we have our Y hat. This is the forecast for megawatts of power generation coming from wind. That's what we're looking at, right? And then we can go ahead and plot this on the chart. You'll see another chart similar to what we saw before. So the forecast is the dark blue line starting January 2018. Remember, go back 1 year. The actual historical values are the dotted line. The light blue, it almost looks like azure. That is the uncertainty, right? So we don't know exactly what it's going to be. You can see the historical sometimes exceeds the upper threshold. Sometimes it exceeds the down threshold, the lower threshold. But we always have the forecast number, which is basically like a mean or like a moving average almost of the historical, and historical is the dotted line. Those are the actual numbers. And the light blue, the azure blue over here is the uncertainty. So we stop here with the actual number, December 31st, 2018. And this is our forecast for the next 30 days in dark blue, okay? So that's what Profit did for us. So it produced a forecast plus the chart. It did both things for us. So I think we're almost at the end. Just hang on, guys. Hopefully you picked up a snack or a drink before you sat down at your computer. This is a long one. Let me just see where we are in the time spectrum here. We have 48 minutes. Okay, I promise I'll wrap it up. It's a lot of stuff to cover, and I think it's pretty fascinating. We get out of it what you put into it. If you cut corners and just do like a real simple analysis, you're going to miss so much. If you really do a deep dive, you can expose yourself to so many nuances and details here that are going to serve you well over time. So here's the final chart, I think. Let me run it. Okay, so this is what we have before. And again, the orange is all of the 3-year historical that we saw before. You see a lot of choppiness over here, but this is actual like the historical supply for wind, and the orange is the estimated demand for wind, right? So the demand is pretty consistent. The supply is kind of all over the place because you can't predict wind, right? Sometimes the wind blows, sometimes it doesn't blow. Sometimes you generate energy when it's blowing. If it's not blowing, you're not generating any energy. But we can make a small adjustment over here based on the percent of wind that we need too. So if you have a lot of your energy coming from a base source like coal, nuclear, gas, something like that, which is stable, consistent, and persistent, very predictable, you don't need a whole lot of wind. Wind can offset the dirty energy, right? And as you introduce more wind, you have more clean energy. But again, it becomes more unreliable. Sometimes the wind's blowing, sometimes it's not blowing. But you can adjust how much wind you use in your analysis here, right? If we're using less wind, you can see the chart goes down. You can even set that to a lower amount, 0.8. Okay, so now we're introducing less wind megawatts because we have an offset there. But if you think that you can actually generate more more energy from the source of wind, then that's great. But again, you have more variability over here because sometimes wind blows and sometimes it doesn't blow. But it is nice to have that kind of like that adjustment or that control that you can say, my assumption is there's going to be more wind this season, right? It's been increasing for the past couple of years, and you can use that to offset your prediction, right? So you can play around with that and get that higher or lower and just tune it. You can tune it into the system. So now the wind offset is much lower. And if you really believe it's going to be a smaller fraction, you can set that much higher. And I had another dampening control over here on the other end too. I think I didn't even demonstrate that before, but I have the same thing over here. I think, where was it over here? Oh yeah, this guy right here. So you can do the same thing, 0.8 for solar. Okay, and then when we produce a chart, you see that now this is really damped it down. So most of the energy at this point is coming from dirty energy, very little solar. But if you're saying we're going to pare down the dirty energy and try to extract more for solar, we're more confident that we're going to get a lot more solar power and we don't need so much dirty energy. You can reset that damper, that governor right there, and then you'll have a higher impact over there. And you can even set that to be a lower number. So these things are a little bit more arbitrary. It takes like a little more like real insight, real knowledge about how these systems really work. I don't have that insight. I'm not like a professional energy person. I'm a professional financial guy, but like if you do have the insight, it's nice to have these kind of controls where you can dial it in and dial it out. I've seen that in the financial markets before. You can dial up your risk and potentially get a higher return. But if you expose yourself to more risk, you might lose most of, not most of, but you might lose more of your value of your portfolio. Or you can take a different stance and say, I don't want to assume more risk, right? I'm going to sell my risk or truncate my risk. And then the compromise is you don't make as much potential return, right? So it's always a risk-return trade-off. In the energy space, it's a little bit like that too. You could say I'm going to take more from solar, more from wind, more from hydro, or more from coal, right? If you're not confident that these other renewable alternative sources of energy can deliver to meet the demand of your constituents, of the community, right, that you serve. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. We just hit 52 minutes, so I didn't expect it to go quite this long, but I did want to do a comprehensive overview of energy supply prediction and energy demand prediction. So we're predicting into the future 30 days based on historical with a focus on the last year, right? So last year, what happened over the last 365 days has more influence over what's going to happen in the next 30 days than compared to what happened 3 years ago, right? So there's more emphasis on the past year, and we're making predictions into the future for the next 30 days. Then we can understand what the demand is going to be. And as the energy company, we can match our supply, the production capacity of these assets that we own, to meet the demand of the constituents. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for hanging out to the end. Hopefully that was useful and informative and educational. I try to, do my best to make these polished and professional and make it, get the message across. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for your time today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.